Hi, and welcome to Fairtrade Sugar, an analytical analysis of Fairtrade's impact on the sugar market. Well, what is sugar? Besides being a tasty sweet, it's actually a valuable global commodity. In 2011, its global export trade was worth $47 billion. That's up from $10 billion in 2000. Additionally, it's a very global product. More than 123 companies produce sugar. And of the sugar that's produced, 70% of it is consumed in producer countries, and only 30% of it is traded on the international market. Well, what does that mean? That means that if 30% of the trade is worth $47 billion, the total trade is worth about $157 billion. With a large commodity market, one would assume that there's money to go around to all parts. However, many farmers or low-scale workers do not earn a lot of money in the sugar market. In Belize, for example, in the Corazon district, which primarily produces sugar, the government estimates that 46% of the population lives in poverty and 15% are destitute. Wages can vary widely across different countries. In Tanzania, the average income is less than $1 a day, while in South Africa, the average income is about $5 a day. Among the profits that are made by small producers, they're taken away by the milling industry, mainly because sugar has to be milled within 24 to 40 hours in order to get the most output from the sugar cane. In Uganda, for example, where the sugar sector employs about 70,000 people, farmers received about $209 per ton, or about 25% of the retail price of sugar, where millers received around $388, or 46%. So Fairtrade decided that they wanted to do something about this problem. They wanted to help the little man out. They wanted to help the farmers gain more money in the supply chain. So how do they do that? Well, they decided that they're going to do a certification strategy where they help farmers grow certifiable products, which means that they're developed in a socially and environmentally friendly way, and then they're going to sell this product for a premium, the Fairtrade premium, and they're going to give some of that money back to the farmer in the form of a premium, which goes to social and economic programs to help the farmers improve. For example, many farmers are given the ability to take a loan from Fairtrade for up to 60% of the price. But how effective is Fairtrade in accomplishing these goals? We know what they want to do, but are they actually accomplishing it? In order to look at that, let's look at supply chain strategy. Supply chain strategy is a framework that allows us to analyze how Fairtrade is effectively using a supply chain strategy to help farmers have a better wage. The first thing we need to look at is demonstrable standards. Now, what are demonstrable standards? Demonstrable standards are basically a way to see how effective the organization is at telling you if it's a good product or a bad product. Or another way to say it is this a certified product or a non-certified product? And how do you tell the difference? Well, Fairtrade has some very clear demonstrable standards that they've put out in a legal document, which you can find on their website. So that would you suggest that it would be pretty high. However, there is some ambiguity as to what is or is not acceptable. For example, with Fairtrade sugar, they do not allow forced child labor, and that makes sense. Nobody wants to use forced child labor. It does not seem like a very healthy thing to do, and somebody was certified, that would be a bad certification. But is the son helping his father? Would that be considered a break of that? I don't know. And there's not very clear definition on that, so that's why it's low to medium. The next most important thing is identity tracking. Now, for identity tracking with Fairtrade sugar, there is none. Fairtrade sugar, due to some feasibility concerns and cost effectiveness, most applicably, the concern that since, as we previously mentioned, sugar needs to be taken to a mill quickly, it's not possible to separate the sugar cane at the mill and determine which was raised in a Fairtrade certified manner or not. It's just impossible to do identity tracking. Now, without doing identity tracking, it's impossible for consumers to know that the product that they're getting is a product that was actually produced on a Fairtrade farm. So basically what Fairtrade sugar is it is not really a supply chain strategy because you're not getting necessarily sugar coming from a fair trade farm. What you're getting is sugar that is produced perhaps in a fair trade farm, but you are paying a subsidy when you buy a fair trade sugar that does go directly to the farmers. So basically, fair trade makes sure that they sell as much sugar as they produce in fair trade environments, and so they are able to bring that premium back. So implementation is not really applicable because implementation would really be how can we ensure along the supply chain when we're doing the identity tracking that all the actors are acting in good faith along that supply chain. Well, since we're not actually identity tracking for the fair trade sugar, there's no implementation required. But if we were to theoretically look at that, I would say it's a low to medium effectiveness. And that's because there's two contrasting styles at play here. The first is that many geographically diverse millers present a challenge to lower it because there's many and it would be almost impossible for the implementer to effectively meet with all of these diverse millers. However, after the milling industry, if you had a few trusted millers, it could work. All sugar goes to the trading market, which is very condensed, where 6 traders control 2/3 of the market. The next thing we have to move on to is authentication. Now, for authentication, what you're looking for in a supply chain strategy is that consumers can trust that the standards that are set by whatever certification agency are actually the ones that are being implemented at the actual farm, because the consumers aren't going to go back to the farm to make sure that the sugar was sourced in an ethical manner. So they have to trust the certification agencies. And Fairtrade uses Flow, and more specifically Flow Cert, to certify. And they're both well regarded and have a lot of favor among the public, which is medium to high. However, since they're not doing identity tracking, I wouldn't rate them as a high, I rate them as a medium. Product demand is the next most important thing. It's typically called the linchpin of all supply chain strategy, because what you need market forces to demand that higher quality products are produced, which you can pay a premium for, which goes through the whole system to introduce the global governance change that you want to produce. We mark product demand as low because only 0.1% of global sugar is sourced as fair trade sugar. However, large retailers such as Tate & Lyle and Ben & Jerry's are beginning to support fair trade sugar. But even among Tate & Lyle, they're only using 20% of their sugar as fair trade. So let's look over what we found and summarize everything. We found that demonstrable standards were low to medium, identity tracking none to very low, implementation low to medium, authentication medium to high, and product demand was low for the supply chain strategy. This leads us to conclude that supply chain strategy is not a very effective tool for the implementation of improving farmer wages in the global south in the sugarcane industry. Please feel free to email me with any questions at Beasley, that's BEASLEY, @gwu.edu. Thanks for your time.